Hello, and welcome to the next tour with
Ian?
and Andia. We're so happy to have you guys with us today. We are on episode 34, Transition Spotlight. We're doing another Transition Spotlight. This one's going to be fun on defense contractors with Benito Barrón. So, welcome.
Hey, thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak with y'all.
Yeah. Well, good friends. Benny and I worked together for the first time more years ago than I'm willing to admit. But a little bit of background about our very good friend. So Benny is a fellow Air Force colonel, a retiree. He became a civilian effective August 1st of 2022 after spending 27 years in uniform. And in the wonderful, career field of security forces, he topped off with the peak of his career as the associate director at headquarters Air Force for the Department of the Air Force's security forces, the largest career field in the Air Force. So what does he do today? Which is actually what we're here to talk to you about, my friend. So you are the director of defense programs for Digital Force Technologies, which is, as we talked about, a defense contractor. And we'd really love to kind of get your perspective on what all that means. So say hey to the audience.
Hey, audience. No, so what essentially it means is that I'm the customer facing representative for the company to our customer base. And as you can imagine, military. So with my team and I, we run all of the conventional force programs that we have. And then I have a colleague, Mike, who runs all of our special projects. So as part of that, it's really kind of interesting and cool because I get to still hang out with warfighters, and between the two of our camps, we can kind of figure out what their capability gaps are. And then I bring that back to the company to see how we engineer something that is of value to them as they continue to serve our wonderful nation.
Nice. So I'd like to pull that thread a little bit about,
Yeah.
being connected to the warfighter, because I think that that's an important kind of thing to talk about is, what drew you into this kind of work a little bit, when you left, the Air Force and, what's the part that appealed to you in getting into this kind of line of work? As you mentioned, remaining connected is one piece of it.
Yeah. So I think for me, it was still an opportunity to serve, but in a different capacity, obviously. And I wanted to do something a little bit different rather than just go straight back into the government. Though I tried that for a little bit and I figured out quickly that was not what I wanted to do. So to continue to serve while not being a part of a government per se, and I got a little taste of it when I was a younger officer working in an acquisitions office. Not a
Mhm.
lot of us get to do, but it was the ability to see what these defense contractors can bring to the fight, and it just sort of piqued my interest then. And then as I sort of got older, had more opportunities in the back of my mind, I kind of always wanted to be able to translate my military service into the corporate world. And so when this opportunity presented itself to me, it was quite frankly a dream come true. And so it started off as a young officer, and then as I transitioned out of the military, I was like, man, I think I want to give it a go. Yeah.
Nice. Well, and I know you're doing incredibly well at it. In fact, you just had a promotion into this job, the current position in the same company just not too long ago. So you're obviously, kicking butt and taking names as
Thanks,
I've
man.
known you to always do.
Sure, I appreciate it. No, it's been good, and what translates well though is it's the team, right? I mean, so when we were in uniform, it was always about the team and our ability to execute that mission. And it's the same. My ability to go from, one role into another role was just because of the successful team that I have, the very, very capable folks that I have the pleasure of working with. So yeah, man, it's been great. The company has been nothing but good to me. And I'll tell you, I've had no regrets.
Awesome.
That's awesome. That's great. So, as you may know, I work now in career transition, helping service members, right? And veterans that are going through their own career transition. So, thinking about somebody that's, interested in going into the government contracting space, what sort of advice do you have for them as they're looking into this? Obviously, you were thinking about this a long time ago, but what if people, are just at their point of transition now, maybe 6 months out, maybe a year out, and they're starting to think about maybe this is a pathway for them? What kind of advice do you have for them?
Yeah, I guess the first thing I would say is you have to understand money, right? And the way that the finances in the military work, how they flow, the budget process, when the right time is to start putting in proposals because you have to influence the budget for the military. So I think that that's key. The other one is understanding the acquisitions world and how that process works and the differing contract avenues that the military can take or that a company was trying to take advantage of. So I think that those are probably the things that are a little bit different than the being able to think strategically and leadership, all those things that are core to any military member as they transition. But if you're trying to get into something a little bit more niche, I would say, especially this world, it's certainly understand the money, certainly understand the acquisition process, you know, to prepare yourself, right? And then full stop. What I'll also add is it's not easy. This is not an easy second career. Ian, you and I talked about how in our second chapter, our next chapter, we wanted something maybe with a little less stress, given what we were doing as we were coming out of the military. This is not necessarily that,
I feel
right?
like you both failed at that then.
Yeah,
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 good
yeah.
job.
I mean, we keep getting our wisdom highlights just filled in
no,
more and more every
absolutely.
single
Hey,
day.
hey, hey, people pay good money for highlights like ours,
That's
brother.
right.
Ours
That's
True.
come
right. It's
free.
so true. I say that all the time as well.
But it's not easy, right? And so I think what's key also, and I know that you guys have talked to this with some other people, is when you do and you go and you interview with these sort of companies or any company that's going to be your next step, is you have to interview the company almost as much as they're trying to interview you, right? And in this business, it's culture. You have to make sure are that you're going to fit into the culture, because when it does get stressful, you have to understand what that's going to mean, right? Is leadership going to get upset at you when you don't meet, the profit margin, right? Because it's a business, and success is measured on profit. And the reason for that is we have families that rely on how well the company does. So it's having that understanding that, are you a good fit for the culture? And if you're not, that's okay. That's okay. There are plenty of opportunities out there. And I think that you just kind of have to wrap your mind around, it's not all glamorous, right? It's a just a metric crap ton of work, and that leads to the stress. But at the end of the day, and this is the thing I would say for anyone, is it's the passion. So I'm lucky in that my company is very passionate about the warfighter, and it translates into the products that we deliver to the warfighter. Absent of that passion, this would be a really, really odd position to be in, and I'm not sure that I would have hung out as long as I have.
Yeah, yeah.
So what I would
Yeah.
say, I'm sorry, Ian, is that it's we had passion we were serving, right? We were passionate for the people that we were working with, and passion for the mission, and all of that, and that passion resides, with the culture that we have. It's just, it's not mission for us. It's supplying the best technology that we can to enable those warfighters.
Mm.
So I said a lot there. I probably answered that
Yeah.
that one question
No,
nine
no,
different
that was
ways, but
perfect. No, that was, but I was just thinking, like, so what, thinking about, I guess, like a little bit deeper to the actual person itself. You did mention leadership and like that, this is like a different fit for folks. So what kind of talents and traits maybe would sort of be in that service member, that veteran, that would be a good fit, I think, for this type of position?
yeah, and I would say that they're the obvious ones, right? Like being able to form teams, lead teams through crisis, right? Those are mainstays. The thing that has enabled, I would say, me, and then I serve. So my team is, Lenny Rose, who's one of us,
Hmm.
and
Yeah,
Kevin Walker, who's one of us,
one of us. Yeah.
right? And then my field engineer support, they're all former Marines. And then I have one person who has never served, and I'll come back to her in just a second because she's absolutely vital to this answer. So the answer I would give you is humility, right?
Mm,
I mean, you have to dig deep into yourself, knowing that you're probably coming out at the top of your game and you're going into something that you've never done. Right. So, you know, uh, yeah, leadership got it, right? Teamwork got it, leading teams got it. But there's a lot about this world that you don't know. Right.
Mm.
And it's acronyms. It's the way that business has to run so that it's profitable. And if you're not humble enough to look to your left and look to your right, know that you're uncomfortable and ask lots of questions, you will not belong for this particular industry. You
Mm.
just won't. right? So the reason why I kind of name dropped a little bit is so their background is a lot like ours, obviously, different experiences, but essentially the same background. We didn't know words like LRIP and bomb and M&A, right? We didn't know what a limited production line was. Running a program in the military is vastly different than running a program on the civilian sector side. So we hired a young lady, um, Amanda Panictera, who came from industry, and she has spent her entire career working for very large companies doing program management. So now we have that built-in knowledge. When terms are being thrown around that we do not understand, we phone Amanda, and she's got her little harem of colonels now, and she's trying to navigate the business waters with us. But it was because the three of us, me, Lenny, Kevin, and I, were humble enough to know that we don't know a lot of this stuff. And poor Amanda, her phone just blows up. It was like, okay, we just got out of that meeting. What did that mean? What do you need me to do? I don't understand. And but yeah, getting in this room, and you're just gonna have to, you know, a lot of humility. That's the word I would use.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. And I dabbled in that a little bit and found
Yeah,
that that
sure.
really wasn't for me. So
Yeah, yeah, he has no humility, so that just wasn't a good fit.
yeah,
Don't
exactly.
I know
Yeah,
it? Don't
nailed
I
it.
know it?
But so let me ask you a little bit of a different slant kind of on this, since we're focusing on really what a career in this industry kind of looks like. I think oftentimes, defense contractors, government contractors, the business development experts, it comes across with a little bit of a negative slant
Sure.
oftentimes. A
Yeah.
lot of folks can sometimes often make it sound like it's sleazy sales and things of that nature. You're opening up the trench coat and trying to sell fake Rolexes, right? But I think that it's a completely different perspective. So I'd like for you to really quickly kind of maybe pull the thread on that. What is it actually like doing all of this, and what is the reality of really that skill set, with the Rolodex, honestly, that you bring to the table to get into that door? What does it really translate into when you're actually doing some stuff?
Yeah, man, that's a great question, because certainly the slimy contractors, the Beltway bandits, you know, um, sure. And frankly, there are some of us in this business that have earned those types. Uh, and you can see them, right? And I think I go back to culture. So like in my company, not a single person is on commission. That is kind of it's a little bit unique for this industry, but the company has built that for a reason. So it's a really interesting dynamic, because you have to sell things in order to make money, in order to sustain the business, right? I mean,
Right.
that's obvious. I think that it's the transparency that you can bring that really is the difference. So
Yes.
when you're going into and talking to a customer, it's can they tell the passion that not only you have, but that the company exhibits, or are we there just trying to fleece them? Right.
Uh-huh.
And I think that, my job is not so much to sell a product so much as it is to sell the company. That, when we get in bed together, right? We're family now, and this is our approach to you. These are things that we'll pay for, and these are things we won't pay for, right? This is what you can expect from us, and this is what we need to expect from you. So I think so long as you have the opportunity to dialogue like that with your customer base, and you're empowered to do that by the company, it makes it a little bit more, it makes it easier, I guess it would
Hmm.
say, versus knocking on the door. Hey, bro, we were stationed, 5 years ago, we were stationed together. I got this thing. You need it. You really, really need it. And boy, do I have a deal for you, right? By the way, that's Lenny Rips' job. Lenny Rose is the guy sells used cars, because he looks like a used car salesman. No, honestly, so it's that piece of it. I mean, it really is trying to set the customer at ease, and letting them know that, yeah, man, again, fully transparent. I need to make money off you, right? And because I got to sustain a business, and the only way I can continue to evolve the technology is by taking some of your money, right? But it's also, but this is what I'm going to give you in return. It's not just
Right.
a phenomenal piece of technology, but it's our business approach. It's our approach. I'm sorry, I said that already. Our acumen, our, complete and utter dedication to you. And I think that over time, that's what you want as a reputation, because it just makes it easier when you do have to knock on that door and, and kind of push a product. It just makes it easier because then there's trust, really.
Right. Well, I mean, you said a lot of things in the beginning too, as we've gone through this conversation, that I think really help kind of thread that needle too. You talked about, building an internal culture that's based off of teamwork and trust, but you also talked about, having the ability to interview the company as well
Yeah.
to ensure that it aligns with your values. And, that value proposition is about supporting the warfighter, but
Absolutely.
doing so in order to make money for the company. You know, I think that the beauty of this whole space is the innovation that it drives.
It
And
does, yeah.
yeah, yeah, because absent the economic environment by which we live in a capitalistic market, it drives innovation. And I think that that is so critical to, our continued national security and why you do what you do at its core.
It absolutely is.
Yes.
And I think
Is I'm sorry,
yeah,
no, go
I was
ahead.
just gonna say when a lot of people when they are searching for that next career for them, you just playing off of what you just said, but it is so vital that you know, a job seeker is really thinking about interviewing that company as
Yeah.
much as they're interviewing you. That give and take, I think, is so important when you're finding that next career that's really gonna fit well in your life and what you want to do. So I'm so glad that you mentioned that because I do think it's such a vital part
Yeah.
of the career process, right? It's kind of like when you first go into the military, you've decided you wanted to go into that culture.
Huh?
You made like a very serious decision to go into that military culture. You knew what you were getting.
Yeah.
Well, in a lot of these companies, you don't know what you're getting, right? You don't know what they're what's the word I'm looking for here? See,
Yeah.
this is
Right.
what
This,
happens. What's the word I'm looking for?
well,
Their culture. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
well, I mean, look, you mentioned that you had a career before coming to DFD. I had one before landing back into government too. So I think interviewing the industry, and aligning that with, your values, with, the direction you want to go for, your next chapter, and being able to continue that on, that's all part of figuring out the culture and what's the passion, all of that good stuff, right?
Yeah, and, and as we were transitioning, and we always talked about what's great is we're no longer in job jail, right? And if, you give it a shot and for whatever reason it doesn't work out, or, you know, the first company you pick is not the one that really fits your idea of culture, then try again. And that's
Hmm.
okay, right? I mean, that's fine. That's probably the exciting part about, going into the next chapter is that you have options, you have choices, and you're not committed to anything other than your happiness, right? And your
Yeah.
family's happiness and your success. And so, if DFT treated me differently, or if DFT asked me to, bend my morals or my values, I certainly wouldn't be here wearing their t-shirt. Right. And so, and I think that's what I would encourage everybody to do is, and frankly, once you get to a point where you are having to really decide between the company and the friends that you have established over decades of service together, in my particular case, then I think you really need to question what it is that you're really trying to accomplish and what kind of company you work for, right? And so, yeah, and as awesome as my company is, and as awesome as, our C-suite, as awesome as they are, there have been a time or two where we've had to have a little bit of a tough conversation of, I just won't do that. Or if you say that again about this particular person, I'm going to vote with my feet. Right. And they were short conversations because they just needed to understand and hear that. And I frankly just needed to get it off my chest. Right. So, there isn't any amount of money in this world, and I mean this literally, that would have me treat my friends, who would become family, in a negative light, right? And I'm not
Mhm.
certainly not going to take advantage of them for a dollar. That's just not who I am, and the company is okay with that. They are absolutely okay with that. And so I think that me growing in this business is also growing, maturing in the business, I guess is a better way of saying that, has been really kind of fun because I can have those conversations with our C-suite, right? And that's the other thing I would say is when you are looking to get into this business, do your research on the company, right? So not
Uh,
only are you there culturally, is my company, we definitely fight at a much higher weight than we probably should. We're not a 1,000-person company, right? We cap out about 100, and that's very comforting for me because I have the voice, or I have the ear, I should say, of our C-suite, because it's me, the COO, and then the president CEO, right? And so I that's a really short line to get some things done. I like that. You could go to a much larger company that's got tens of thousands of people, and you know, uh, the culture there is going to be a lot different. So, and
mhm.
but their benefits might be better. I don't know, right? So, as you go through that, I mean, honestly, make sure that the culture is something that you're comfortable with, but the makeup of the company is something that appeals to you.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think all of this is a really good way to, kind of put that exclamation on, what we talked about is, getting into, an opportunity that you might not have considered when you were, in uniform earlier on. But being able to kind of pull that thread, a couple of decades later, dare I say,
Yeah. Thank you
and
for
being
saying a
able to take
couple and not a few. Thank you.
yeah, there you go. I was being generous. Yeah, but being able to kind of pull that passion into something into that next chapter of your life when you do take that uniform off, still have the satisfaction of being able to serve just in a different capacity, but being able to put your family first because you can put down those roots. You don't have to worry
Yeah.
about a PCS and really figure out what you're passionate about and have it align with your culture. I think those are those really big messages that we were able to draw out today. So, Benny, thanks so much for being on and
Yeah, man.
talking about this stuff. But at this point, let's real quick wrap up. Anything else you'd like to add real quick before we go to kind of the fun stuff and the games?
The only thing I think I would add, and I just wrote myself a note so I wouldn't forget, is the passion. I think we've really hit that hard, but it's you got to believe in the product, right? I
Hmm.
mean, you really, really have to believe in what it is that you're offering. And if you have any sort of, I think that if you start not believing in the product, then you either try to do something about it within the company, or again, you vote with your feet. But that's the other thing I would say is people are looking into this business is don't chase the dollar, man.
Yeah,
Don't chase the dollar. Actually make sure that you believe in the product and you believe in the company.
yeah. Well, people can tell if it's fake. I mean, it's
Yeah,
easy.
absolutely. Yeah. In this business, you can't fake the funk, man.
That's good, man. Well, I really appreciate it. This has been a really awesome conversation. So let me transition into the next question that I have
Okay.
for you. It's what's in your rucksack? So this,
Very important
yes,
question.
very important question. So, two things. One that you brought with you from your time in the military service, and what did you chuck out? It can be literal, it can be metaphorical, whatever you want. So, Benny, over to you.
Yeah, dude. So I would say that, and we've said it so much, it's probably a cliche. So I'll just continue down that path. It's
Bring it.
passion. It's passion,
Yeah.
right? That's the one thing in the rucksack that I think I brought over, aside from the obvious ones, right? It's, I believe in the people with whom I work. I love, watching them iterate and just continue to develop awesome things for the warfighter. And I believe in our product. So it's passion, right?
Yeah.
And the fact that I still get to support the warfighter is just extremely important to me. So I would say that, before we had passion for the mission, now I just have passion for the product and the warfighter, I suppose, I guess.
Love it.
The thing that I have left behind, because it's interesting, right? There's still a lot of similarities, especially when you start talking about stressful jobs. But the one that I think I'm better at now than what I was before was availability. Serving as long as we did, Ian, and certainly with the multiple command tours that we had to be available, right? And
Right.
I had a boss who once told me, "We gave you a government phone for a reason because I need to be able to get a hold of you whenever I need to," right? So, now, if my boss calls me in the middle of the night, which has never happened, by the way, certainly I would pick up. Right. But I've also gotten to the point where, my Teams app shuts off at a certain time, my email shuts off at a certain time. I check out. I just
Yeah.
absolutely check out, and because I just don't want to have that life anymore. Right.
Yeah.
And so
The
I
work
would
will
say
be there
that.
tomorrow.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah.
And if it's important, they'll call. So
Yeah.
I think that sense of always having to be available to the job,
Mm.
yeah, man, I left that behind. The hell with that.
Love that.
Strong.
That's such a good point.
Yeah,
Such a
the
good point.
hell with
And
that.
it should be that way,
Yeah.
right? When you take off the uniform, you should be thinking about that when you're transitioning. Is this how available do I want to be?
Yeah,
Like,
because
do
it's
I have
good
to
for
have
this and it's
Yeah,
good for this.
that's right.
It
It's
and
good for your family,
no,
right?
absolutely,
It's good for
and
this.
right,
Yeah.
right, and so, I mean, that's kinda how it came to be, honestly. It's not like I had this, wow, man, I'm better than this." It was like the wife was like, "Hey, man, can you turn that damn thing off at a certain time?" "Yes, ma'am, I can."
Yeah. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Have had those conversations with each other, both directions. So,
Oh, yeah.
um, all right. So now the very important two truths and a lie military style. Okay, so I'm going to read you, and you're going to get to guess from our last guest that we had on, which was Lou Baker. He's a wealth manager, also an Army veteran, West Point grad. So he gave us his 3 items. So I'm going to tell you now. You get to guess which is the lie. Okay, he owns a Mossberg and a Glock. P.S. I did not know what a Mossberg was. Someone told me. Number 2, he drives a Ford F-50. And number 3, he bought his first house at 24 years old.
And he is an Army veteran wealth manager.
Airborne Ranger. Yeah, I mean, who a guy.
I would say he doesn't own a Ford, F-1.
No, he does. He does not own the weapons.
Oh, nice.
I
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
I guessed.
I got it wrong.
I guessed it right.
Well, I guess
So,
it makes
okay.
sense. If you're a wealth manager, you're probably driving F-150s versus Lamborghinis because you know better. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, it was a good guess. Okay, so over to you. It's your chance to give us your 3 items, and then our next guest will get to guess. I'm never
A lot
saying
of
that
words.
again.
Wow, that was impressive.
All right.
So my 3 would be climbed Mount Washington in New Hampshire. I have 3 daughters, and I've run the Marine Corps Marathon.
Oof. Well,
Copy that. I do know you, so
that's true.
good thing
This
we're
is the
not
reason we're
guessing.
not
I
guessing.
know.
That's right. Oh my gosh, Benny, it was so great to have you. And like you said before we got started, we sadly are neighbors. We don't live that far apart. And we never see each other, which is so bad because, life gets in the way. But thank you for spending this time with us. We will see you and Stephanie soon, I'm sure. But thank you so much for being here today.
My pleasure.
It was a great
Yeah.
time to talk about this. I think this is important.
Yeah.
This is an important spotlight for us to put on a career path, and we just couldn't have picked anyone better to do it with. So thank you so much for being here.
Yeah.
No,
And we'll get all the links to connect with Benny, DFT, and all these other resources that we talked about. They'll be in the show notes too. So yeah, Benny,
no,
thanks
hey,
so much.
no, I appreciate it, and honestly, thanks for what you guys are doing with this, with this platform. It's important, and Ian, as you and I talked about when we were transitioning, there wasn't enough information out there for us. We had too many questions, not enough answers, and I think you guys are trying to fill that gap. So, really appreciate what you guys are doing, man. Much love.
Ah,
Thank
right back
you.
at you, man. We can't do it without guys and gals like you, man.
That's
So
right.
yeah, really appreciate it.
All right, you guys
Awesome.
take
Well, to
care.
our audience out there, thank you so much. As Ian said, you can definitely connect with Benny. You can connect with us. You can find all of our episodes on wherever you find podcasts, and of course on our YouTube channel and our website at thenexttourpodcast.com. And with that, we will see you next time on the next tour. The views, opinions, and advice expressed by our guest on the next tour are their own and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of the podcast, Ian, Andia, or any affiliated organizations. While we strive to provide helpful and accurate information, this podcast is for informational purposes only. We encourage listeners to consult with professionals or conduct their own research before making any significant decisions related to military transition or post-service life. The content is intended as guidance and personal perspective, not as official advice.